Happy game day, everybody. Welcome into GameQuest. It is a Volquest.com football game day podcast. I am Eric Cain alongside Grant Ramey, and we're going to get you set for Tennessee on the road again at Arkansas, 7:30 Eastern Time kick. That game will be televised on ABC, and of course, we'll have all the coverage over at Volquest.com. Over the next 40, 50 minutes or so, Grant and I are going to give you some of the thoughts on the game, dive into the personnel for Arkansas, some bowl predictions, some score predictions, all that. We're going to talk with Curtis Wilkerson of Inside Arkansas here in the middle portion of the show. So to get the in-depth analysis on the Razorbacks, the Hogs, who they are, and who Sam Pittman's club is. So buckle up. It's going to be a whole lot of fun here on GameQuest. And we couldn't do without our friends over at Premier Garage of Knoxville, East Tennessee's #1 provider of custom garage flooring, cabinetry, and storage solutions. Be the best Tennessee fan this football season by ordering the Smokey Grey hybrid polymer floor today at premiergarageknoxville.com/Vols. That's premiergarageknoxville.com/Vols. Okay, Grant Ramey, we've got Tennessee and we've got Arkansas. Tennessee 4-0, had a bye week last week. Arkansas's 3-2, 1-1 in SEC play. Forced a lot of turnovers at Auburn 2 weeks ago. Gave up 3 leads to Texas A&M and lost a late one there to Texas A&M last weekend. What's your overall big thoughts on who Arkansas is?
I wish I knew who Arkansas was. I think it's a hard Arkansas team to figure out. I think I gave them maybe more credit than I should have based on what Sam Pittman was talking about on Monday in his press conference, because he's talking about the quarterback doesn't have a ton of confidence and the offensive line's not giving him a great pocket, and he's sticking in the pocket too long when he should try to escape, and he's trying to escape when he should stick in the pocket, and they've got tight end issues health-wise and kind of beat up a little bit. So I don't know. They're a hard team to figure out because they come out and put 70 on Pine Bluff, which that's what you should do. They start really fast at Oklahoma State, then they sputter, and nobody wanted to win that game. They lose in double overtime. They give up 3 leads against Texas A&M. I mean, that's a game you got to win. If you're leading 3 different times, you got to find a way to win that football game on a neutral site. I would be a lot more concerned, I guess I should say, if I'm Tennessee about this test. If they did win last week and they were 4-1 going into this game, I think are they 3-2? They'd be 4-1. I think they'd be a little bit more, hostility in the atmosphere. It's going to be a stripe game or whatever, and in Fayetteville, and there's going to for Tennessee, it kind of feels like you're hitting the alarm clock on Groundhog's Day again. You're Bill Murray, because you're going on the road. It's another 7:30 game. I don't know if Tennessee's ever going to play another day game, by the way, or if they're ever going to play another home game, by the way. But it feels like you kind of already passed a similar test at Oklahoma, going on the road, night game, tough environment, and you found a way to win. You handled your business. Now, can you do it again? That's the question. And Austin Price said it a couple times the last couple of weeks. I'd be a lot more worried about this game if it was straight off of Oklahoma and that kind of emotion that was in that game and is a little bit different if you had to go straight to Arkansas and try to win a football game. But the fact that they're coming off a bye week, they got to rest up a little bit. Arkansas is coming off a pretty tough game against A&M, and Sam Pittman's talking about being beat up a little bit. I think that plays in Tennessee's favor. It's just a matter of, can they keep handling their business?
Yeah, I think this is an Arkansas team, and I said this earlier in the week. I don't think it's a bad football team. I also don't think it's a very good football team. It's just it's an average football team right now. And is that good enough at season's end for Sam Pittman to keep his job? I don't know. I made the I don't cover Arkansas. I don't really, that's not on my mind right now. But it's a team to where you can't just sleepwalk and go in there and assume a win. But it's a team that, time of this recording, and it's been this way all week, Tennessee's a 13.5-point favorite. Tennessee should go in there and play its game and win by 2 touchdowns, in my opinion. But again, there are going to be some factors in this game that we thought were going to be more relevant at Oklahoma, if that makes sense. So crowd noise. Oklahoma was not, I know we were sitting in the press box, but it wasn't loud, or it wasn't quiet, but it wasn't like SEC loud. Arkansas can get loud, especially if you let it. So dealing with the pre-snap stuff, how do you manage all that? I think Nico did a great job, and Tennessee's offense did a great job at Oklahoma 2 weeks ago. But you got to manage all that. And but I just think this is a team where it's a little bit overrated on the stat sheet if you look at Arkansas, and we'll dive into the personnel a little bit later. But like Taylor Green, the quarterback, is 3rd in the SEC in passing. He's top 10 in the SEC in rushing. Jaquindon Jackson's leading the SEC in rushing. You're like, oh, man, that offense is pretty good. Yeah, well, this offense so far can run the football, but it can't really throw the football that well, and it gives up a lot of sacks. And I think the stats are a little bit misleading as well. So overall, I think this is a game that Tennessee should handle, but obviously you got to go in there and do it.
Yeah, I mean, just with Tennessee's defense against any offense, really, you feel confident because they're usually moving the line of scrimmage. They're usually pressuring quarterbacks. They're usually shutting down the run. Like when you can do that, when you can check those boxes, that's a really tough defense to face. And it doesn't matter what atmosphere you go into on the road. If your defense is sacking the quarterback, if your defense is shutting down the run, if Oklahoma's got less than 100 total yards entering the fourth quarter, like you never gave that crowd a chance to get into that football game.
Yeah.
And I think if you're Tennessee, that's what you got to kind of keep trying to do in these road games is set the tone defensively. You're going to make plays offensively. There's going to be the Dante Thornton 66-yard touchdown or the big 40 whatever yard chunk play to Brew McCoy, where there's going to be Dylan Sampson kind of spinning out tackles and moving the chains and finding ways to keep drives alive. But that defense, man, it's just I don't know. I was a lot more worried about Jackson Arnold going into the Oklahoma game than I was about Jalen Green going into the Arkansas game. And maybe that's the wrong way to look at it. Maybe this kid shows up and has a really special night and balls out, whatever. But Tennessee's defense, just the way they move the line of scrimmage, the way they have consistently pressured other quarterbacks, and the way they've shut down the run, that's just a really, really tough defense to face.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm with you. I was, especially in the offseason, kind of going into last week, I mean, I was more concerned with Jackson Arnold, but then you go in there and I mean, he didn't light it up before the Tennessee game. He certainly didn't light it during the Tennessee game. And I think I've said this repeatedly throughout the week. I think, and it's a discredit to Tennessee's schedule, but I think Taylor Green's going to be the best quarterback Tennessee's seen so far because it wasn't Grayson McCall. Hat tip to Tennessee's defense. It wasn't Grayson McCall, wasn't Jackson Arnold, wasn't Hawkins, wasn't whoever's quarterbacking for Kent State and UTC. But the thing about Taylor Green is, I mean, he doesn't complete passes at a high rate, 54% on the year. He's got 5 touchdowns. He's thrown 5 interceptions. He likes to bail too much and run. He gets sacked a lot. He's going if this relentless pursuit of the defensive front and the front seven just get after him and get him inside of his own head and make things difficult as the game goes on. I think he's going to gift Tennessee a couple of times, with some turnovers, and that's how I think this game's going to go. And I think it's a nice, and I might have said this on one of the podcasts this week. I think it's a nice, and I don't want to disrespect the opponent, but like the type of quarterback Taylor Green is, it's almost like a version of what you're going to see with Jalen Milroe coming up in a couple of weeks. Now, Jalen Milroe is much better, but he's long, escapability, extending plays, stuff like that. So I'm intrigued to see how Tennessee handles this because in years past, mobile quarterback's not been Tennessee's forte, but I think the Tennessee defense is really good. But that's obviously going to be a factor, shutting him down, not allowing him to extend plays, especially on third downs, forcing him into bad decisions and taking advantage of those gifts that I think he's going to offer up the Tennessee defense because he's turned it over quite a few times this year.
How many times can you sack him? How many times can you hit him? Because it's tough enough to run against this Tennessee defense when you're ahead of the chains or on schedule in terms of your drive. It's monumentally more difficult when you give up a sack and it turns into a 2nd and 15 or a 3rd and 16 or whatever that is. So how consistently does Tennessee get pressure? You would assume pretty consistently because that's all we've seen so far. How consistently do they hit him? Probably going to happen a lot because we've seen that happen so far in sack numbers, tackles for a loss, stuff like that. I mean, just listening to Pittman on Monday kind of opened my eyes to, man, they're kind of in a tough spot here because if you're searching for confidence as a quarterback, this is not the defense you want to face. And this is not, if you're struggling to, have a clean pocket and protect the kid, that's not the defense you want to face because we've seen that the strength, this front seven, the depth of the front seven, man, that's the strength of this Tennessee football team. And if they set the tone there, then it should be a good night for Tennessee, but we'll see.
Grant, how about the two head? I know you covered many more than I have because you're so much older than me. The 2 head coaches I've covered here at Tennessee, Josh Heupel and Jeremy Pruitt, the last 2 weeks, Brent Venables with the media, Sam Pittman with the media, just complete 180s, right? I mean, it could be a good thing or a bad thing, but it's just like, I mean, Venables one presser last week talked for like 45 minutes. I mean, Josh Heupel would talk for 3 minutes on Thursdays last year. Like, it's pretty incredible.
Monday was 33 minutes with Sam Pittman. Now, I'll give Sam Pittman this. He's a great quote, and I thought it seemed like pretty insightful and honest and kind of open. And, Heupel is Josh Heupel's Josh Heupel. He's going to try to be as boring as possible in front of the media. That's fine with me. If you want to do that, do that. At least if you're going to be boring, let's keep it 10 minutes or less and let's get on with our day. Because I don't. The day after I think Oklahoma, Tennessee, or the Monday after, whatever, Tuesday after, was like a 57-minute press conference with Brent Venables talking about the quarterback situation, all that stuff. I don't know how these guys have that kind of attention span.
Grant, could you imagine trying to transcribe that?
Yeah, he's long-winded too. He is very long-winded.
You might actually have to make me and AP and others help you do that if that was the case. But
He's
luckily,
long-winded,
Josh Heupel,
but at least Sam Pittman's talking about like the first time he stepped in Neyland Stadium. He's like, I'm not getting this job. Talking about 2012 when he's in Knoxville for an interview, and I mean, who sits up there and says, as an SEC football coach, my quarterback's got confidence issues? Like, that's a pretty big thing you're admitting right there.
When you're already on the hot seat.
Right, and I just think Sam Pittman's also kind of comfortable in his own skin. I mean, he's been there since 2020. That's a lifetime compared to how quickly guys get fired these days. So he's been there for a minute. He understands the landscape. He knows what he's doing.
Hey, we're going to continue to dive into who Arkansas is by chatting with a guy from inside Arkansas. Curtis Wilkerson is going to join the show here in a matter of moments, and we'll come back and dive into some more of the personnel, some keys to the game, and some of our bold takes for the game and bold predictions, all that and more as GameQuest continues on. Do want to give a shout-out to our presenting sponsor. That is Premier Garage of Knoxville. Garage guys or gals who bleed orange. Do you use your garage as some sort of man cave, watching football throughout the fall, maybe even trying to get away from the family for a bit, for a moment or two? If you're like me, I start every football Saturday in my garage, and I can say that now because I have a garage. I bought a house last week. Watching College Game Day or even that start to the new 12:45 game on the SEC Network, it is your place. It is a place to kick back, maybe have a few cold ones, escape from it all. So here's a question for you, all right? What better compliment to this garage, this sanctuary of sorts, than Premier Garage of Knoxville's custom Smokey Grey hybrid polymer floor? I'm going to share my screen here. If you're watching on YouTube, you can get a good look at what I'm talking about here. Look at this garage floor. Look how brilliant it is, okay? You see the flakes right there. This can be in your garage, making you the best Tennessee fan. You look at the gray, look at the orange. Just gorgeous. I mean, you talk about being the talk of the town whenever you have the boys over to watch some football or whatnot. But nonetheless, you can go to this website here. It's premiergarageknoxville.com/Vols. That is premiergarageknoxville.com/Vols. And you can check out flooring options, storage options. You can see pictures, video. You can contact Premier Garage Knoxville, all that and more. You can get signed up. This is your one-stop shop to check it all out. It's premiergarageknoxville.com/Vols. So, kind of get back to what they're trying to get you, across in the door for the Smokey Grey hybrid polymer floor. All of Premier Garage in Knoxville, East Tennessee's leading provider of custom garage flooring, cabinetry as well, storage solutions. They only use company employees as opposed to subcontractors to ensure that you're going to receive the consistent craftsmanship and personalized attention. 15 plus years in business, locally owned and operated, and thousands of satisfied customers. That is Premier Garage in Knoxville. Schedule a free in-home consultation by visiting that website I just showed you, premiergarageknoxville.com/Vols. The Vols sported those Smokey Greys in week 1, looked pretty darn good doing it, so why not flake your garage floor with the same Tennessee Smokey Grey hybrid polymer floor? Check it all out today. That is at premiergarageknoxville.com/Vols. premiergarageknoxville.com/Vols. And I want to give a shout out to another proud sponsor of the show. That is Prize Picks. Grant and I played Prize Picks a little bit last year and had a blast doing it. You have a player grid, okay? 2 to 6 players, and you open yourself up to go more than or less than the projected stat value. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with just a few taps. It is so much fun to do, and you can put some coin in your pocket while having a vested interest in the football game, not just the team that you're rooting for, but other teams around the SEC or college football. So you can fill up your player grid, 2 to 6 players. Nico, passing yards, this or that. Dylan Sampson, rushing yards, this or that. Maybe Jalen Milroe, passing yards, this or that. Over and under and all that more. Plus, at this time, you can also play $5, get $50 instantly if you use the promo code VQ. Play $5, get $50 instantly by putting in that promo code VQ. So, how you do all this? Well, you go to PricePicks.com, put in that promo code VQ. Again, $50 once you put in $5 in lineups. That is PricePicks.com/VQ. Promo code VQ to receive a guaranteed $50 once you play $5 in lineups. Have a whole lot of fun today by going to Price Picks and add a little bit more, even more excitement to your football Saturday. Want to welcome onto the show Curtis Wilkerson from Inside Arkansas, covering the Razorbacks on a daily basis. They do a lot of stuff over there at Inside Arkansas. They've got a website. They do written stories. They do live shows. They're all over YouTube. So, Curtis, appreciate you taking the time. Right from the top, man, I just want to know kind of what's your impressions of this Arkansas team. They're 5 games in, 3-2, 1-1 in SEC play. There's been some highs. There's been some lows. What do you make of this Sam Pittman coach football team?
Well, it's been a roller coaster ride for the Razorbacks, no doubt. I think we're still trying to figure out exactly what this team is. It's been a confusing bunch. There are times where Arkansas looks much improved. They look legit out there on both sides of the football, but then they tend to do this thing where they can't get out of their own way. I think, Sam Pittman's teams have had a little bit of a one-score sickness. I think they're 6-16 maybe in one-possession games. And a lot of times it's because they just find a way to lose. And turnovers have really been an Achilles heel in both of the losses for the Razorbacks this season. Untimely penalties and just not being able to close things out. So I think when you see Arkansas this weekend, you'll see a bunch that has a pretty good amount of high-end talent. I mean, Cain and Grant is electric out there at quarterback. He's also very erratic. Jaquindon Jackson is a beast at running back. But sometimes they forget to give him the football. So, and Travis Williams is a great defensive coordinator, but for every stop that they get, it seems like they might allow a huge play. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag for Arkansas. And then the other thing that you'll see, man, is they're weird at home. They just have this thing where for whatever reason, they have this tendency to come out flat at home, but they also tend to play up or down to the level of their competition. So the too long didn't read version of that is I have no idea what to expect from this team any week, much less on Saturday.
That was a great way to phrase it. And I'm so upset that it's so late in the week that I can't get the full, use out of that this week. Electric, but erratic. And
Yeah.
from the stat sheet, and again, I watched a little bit against Oklahoma State. I watched a little bit against Texas A&M, but I don't watch every single snap, and I don't try to be an expert on Arkansas, but you can see Taylor Green's got a lot of ability. Third in the SEC in passing. He's top 10 in rushing. Turnovers have been an issue. Completion percentage is way down. That's not where you want it to be. What's his game? When and why does he struggle? And when and how does he succeed? And where could he hurt Tennessee?
Yeah, when Taylor Green's at his best, it's almost like he's playing sandlot football a little bit. He's able to improvise, use those legs. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's 6'6", 230 pounds, deceptively fast and athletic. He really sneaks up on you with those long strides. And I think it's a little bit deceptive to the defenders who are trying to close in on him because they never seem to take good angles. You almost don't realize how fast he is until you get right up on him. But, when he's rolling outside the pocket, and he's able to just kind of find his guys and, maybe makes a play with his legs. Maybe he throws it. That's when he's at his best. I think when they ask him to stand in the pocket, which maintaining a pocket has been a big issue for Arkansas this season, that's where you start to see some of the struggles. It's the reads, the progressions, hitting his guys on time and in stride. Part of the reason why he lost his job for a little while at Boise State was because some of those accuracy issues. If it's the intermediate ball, the deep ball, he struggles to put it, right where he needs to put it. And that has led to some problems for him in the SEC where he's behind guys, underthrows or overthrows guys. And then sometimes he makes some poor decisions and puts that thing into trouble. What you'll see with Taylor Green is he's a very up and down kind of guy. When he's feeling himself and things are rolling, he looks like a guy that you just flat out can't stop. But there's been some times here the last couple of games where you've heard, sideline announcers saying, oh, Taylor Green is rattled. You've heard Sam Pittman say, well, we're not sure about the confidence in our quarterback. Those are red flags. Not what you want to hear when you're talking about your quarterback. The highs are very high. The lows can be low, and you can kind of tell it's written all over his face and in the way that he plays.
Yeah, I think from a Tennessee side of things and kind of paying attention more to Sam Pittman this week, which everybody loves Sam Pittman.
Hard not to.
Fans, yeah, hard not to. Tennessee fans loved him when he was here. Wanted him to come coach offensive line many, many times. Obviously, Arkansas fans wanted to win ball games, but hearing Sam Pittman talk about his quarterback and confidence issues, I mean that to me on Monday, I'm like, whoa, that's like Josh Heupel doesn't say anything ever, so I appreciate a coach being candid, but like, man, if a coach said that here, I mean, it'd be bad. Like I can't believe he said that. Were you surprised?
Uh, no, not really. And here's the thing about Sam Pittman. Absolutely love him, and for all the reasons that you laid out there. But his honesty tends to get him in trouble sometimes with the things that he says. Whether that's true behind closed doors or not, that's probably not something that you want to portray and put out there. But I mean, my goodness, they were able to win the game on the road at Auburn. But in the aftermath, you were hearing, running back Jaquindon Jackson saying, yeah, Taylor Green, he gets a little too jittery back there. Sometimes I got to talk to him. Then you have the deal, on the sidelines where the reporters are saying, hey, Taylor Green's really rattled. Sam Pittman's talking to him. Bobby Petrino's talking to him. And then you turn around on Monday and you got the head coach saying, yeah, he's not very confident in there. So not great, not what you want to hear. But part of that is I think he's learning some new mechanics. Bobby Petrino's changed his throwing motion. They've really worked a lot on his footwork. So he's thinking about all those things. And then quite honestly, if you look at Arkansas's offensive line, it's two different groups on the field at the same time. Really good run blocking, non-existent pass blocking. And so if you have a guy who's struggling through some things with his own mechanics, he's got just guys taking beads on him every other play. I think that he's starting to hear some footsteps a little bit. He's gotten into some trouble with some interceptions and some missed throws, some weird communication with any receiver not named Andrew Armstrong. And it seems like that stuff might be getting into his head a little bit. So big week of practice for him, and the challenge gets no easier with Tennessee coming in this weekend.
Yeah, obviously the strength of Tennessee's defense is that defensive line. Rodney Gardner is going to play 13 guys up front. You got James Pierce, who has a half a sack on the season, but just up and down that defensive line. It's a bunch of grown men who have been in this program for 4 or 5 years. So if I'm Tennessee's defensive line, like obviously I'm licking my chops a little bit trying to get after it. So that's obviously something that Taylor Green has got to be mindful of. I want to talk about that run game. Really good run game you mentioned. You got Jaquindon Jackson leading the SEC in rushing right now. 18 rushing touchdowns, double the amount that Arkansas had all of last year in only 5 games. Why are they so good? Tell me, Coach, why are they so good running the football, but so blocking for the run? Why are they so poor protecting their quarterback in pass pro?
Man, it's that's the $1 million question. Honestly, what I see a lot of in pass pro, there's some miscommunication in there in terms of who's picking up who. And part of that is they kind of had to build this offensive line through the transfer portal, which you never really want to do. But I mean, goodness, it was historically bad last season. They had to go out there and get more talent. So you bring in an Addison Nichols, who you guys are familiar with. They go out and get Junior Carmona and Keyshawn Blastock from San Jose State and Michigan State. So they've really had to kind of filter that thing through the transfer portal. It's communication issues, but also they really do have some problems with speed coming off of the edge, which is another thing that we've seen there. And so that's probably some of the issues with pass pro. But in the run blocking, they can just kind of line up and put hat on hat. They're a big, physical, strong group and do a good job of paving the way. And then it helps when you have really physical running backs. Jaquindon Jackson is exactly that. He hits the hole with a full head of steam, and he will run over you, through you, around you, whatever he needs to do. He's really, really good. I think better than Arkansas even imagined, and they were high on him when they brought him in. And then you can complement that with a Braylon Russell, who's a true freshman, but this is a guy who's 6'1", 6'2". He's like 255 pounds as a back. So a lot of power there, and then there's always the threat of Taylor Green to get the edge on the outside. So it's a pretty potent, pretty dynamic running game. But yeah, boy, in the pass pro, that offensive line struggles mightily.
Yeah, Tennessee knows all about Braylon Russell. Wanted him badly, and obviously he's a really. I think he's going to be a good one come a couple of years. But right now, Jaquindon Jackson's a really, really good player. Let's flip over to defense. Look good so far. You mentioned Travis Williams' his name, right?
That's right.
Yeah, defensive coordinator. Points were not great last year, but from 22 to 23, it looked like his unit gave up about 100 yards less or somewhere around there. So big improvement, already forcing 7 turnovers. The back end of the defense looks like the strength. Tell me if I'm wrong. You got another new guy in there like Danico Slaughter coming over from Tennessee playing the star. Looks like you're getting good safety play from TJ Metcalf and a guy in Johnson who's been there for a while. Is the secondary kind of the strength? And if so, why are they playing so well?
Yeah, it's really interesting. You can almost look week by week and try to pick out the spot that you feel the best about. Coming into the year, they really felt like secondary would be the strength, and it's gotten a lot better after a couple hiccups early in the season. You mentioned, Nico Slaughter. He's really come around after a rough start. TJ Metcalf has come on strong as a sophomore, and Jaden Johnson. Yeah, the safety play is really strong. They need to get a little bit more healthy at corner. They've been missing their number one guy, Jalen Braxton, for several weeks now. Sam Pittman didn't sound overly optimistic. They'd have him back. Some guys have filled in nicely with Marquise Robinson, Jaheim Singletary, Keon Stewart, but it's not the same as having your lockdown guys. So we'll see about him. Linebacker, they were really, really thin after most of those guys hit the transfer portal at the end of the season, but they've done a good job of bringing guys in. Xavier Sori out of Georgia has been really good for them. Steven Dix, a transfer out of Marshall. Those guys have come in and played really well. The defensive line is what's really been up and down. They've been strong against the run, but really up until last week, they'd struggled mightily at just getting pressure on the quarterback, which is interesting when you got a guy like Landon Jackson out there. He finally had his breakout game against Texas A&M, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. If he gets going, it really changes the dynamic of what Arkansas can do up front.
Tell me, yeah, I know about Landon Jackson, really good player last year. 6.5 sacks, led Arkansas, started his career at LSU. Good player. Saw him make those sacks a week ago against A&M. Obviously, Tennessee's going to be looking for him. And if I'm Landon Jackson, I'm licking my chops looking at Tennessee's offensive tackles from the Oklahoma game, man. Albeit they were backups, Tennessee's starters were out, but still, like, some opportunities there. I can't pronounce his name, but the defensive lineman from the FCS level that Arkansas got in the offseason, what's his name?
Let's see. Maybe Danny Saili is a big fella there. They've got Cam Ball's a returner. Anton Junkaj. That's probably who you're asking about.
The guy that had like 15 sacks last year.
Yes. Yeah. Led the FCS at Albany. That's right.
It looks like, I mean, again, I don't watch every play. It looks like it just hasn't translated over to Arkansas yet. Is he a contributor? Is he just not figured it out yet? What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, I got to admit, he's kind of been on the all cardio team so far. He's been out there, but we haven't seen much production. Thankfully for Arkansas, they've had a returner in Nico Davier who's really stepped up and provided some nice production for him. Junkaj was in and out during fall camp. I think he missed some time with a concussion, and then maybe it was a bone bruise or something going on that knee. So he's been a little bit dinged up. We'll see if he comes on strong when he gets healthy. But yeah, I mean, he was a guy who was brought in to really give them a pretty dynamic and potent 1-2 punch off the edge with Landon Jackson, and just haven't seen much at all from him lately. He's struggled to finish tackles, struggled to get home on the pass rush. They really need him to pick it up because Davier's been good, but you need more there. And if you look at Arkansas, the defensive line, you look across the starters, the front four, you feel pretty good about it, but depth has been a big issue for them. They've been trying to get more guys involved, but if you go look at the go-ahead game-winning touchdown drive for Texas A&M, it was all of Arkansas's backup defensive linemen in the fourth quarter, and there's just a huge drop-off right there. You're seeing guys like Landon Jackson playing 60, 65, 70 snaps a game. That's insane. It's just not sustainable.
And that's where Tennessee's just different from any team in the country, where there's not a huge drop off from line 1 to line 2 to line 3. And a couple of years ago, Tennessee's defensive tackle Matthew Butler played over 800 snaps in the season. That is not the case at all. I mean, like Amari Thomas, Bryce, like those are NFL guys. They'll play like 40 snaps at most, probably. So that's an advantage, not just against Arkansas, but really just for Tennessee in general. Curtis, tell me, kind of out the door here, just a couple more. If Arkansas is going to pull off this upset at home, it will do what? And then second part, what can Arkansas ill afford to do to fall down early? Because Tennessee is a great first quarter football team.
Yeah, I think if you're Arkansas, and it's tough because Arkansas's bye is next week, and they're pretty banged up going into this one. And you mentioned Tennessee being a great team. What is it, like 78-3 outscoring opponents in the first quarter? Something like crazy. That, yeah. Arkansas's got to get off to a fast start, but it's a weird situation they're in right now. Mentioned how they have this tendency to come out flat at home for whatever reason. You obviously can't afford to do that against a team like Tennessee. And then you need to give the crowd a reason to stay involved and stay in it. It should be a good atmosphere. It's a night game. They're doing a stripe out, but there's some there's some consternation brewing in that fan base, and you need to give them a reason to be excited and stick around. Arkansas cannot turn the football over. If you look at the games they've lost, Oklahoma State, Texas A&M, turnovers and penalties, just the things where you're kind of not able to get out of your own way. They're the kings of the self-inflicted wounds so far this season. Cannot afford to have those mistakes and even stay in a ball game with a team like Tennessee, much less get out of there with a victory.
Complete sidebar, but I've got a notepad. I do it every single week where I'm old school. I literally write down literally everything about the next opponent. I break down the games and all that.
I'm with you.
There we go. Hey, that's journalism, baby.
That's right.
Without getting too far in the weeds, what happened with the Arkansas offense against UAB? I mean, you won the game 37-27, but passing was non-existent. Only 430 yards of total offense in a game where you should have more, I would assume. Had a turnover. What happened for Arkansas offensively against UAB?
It was really interesting. First of all, that was a prime example. It was their only home game up to this point, but where Arkansas just comes out and they look flat, uninspired, and unprepared, which was, I think, one of the more interesting parts about it. UAB was really flying around. They looked like the faster, more aggressive team early in that game, which was wild. But it was a situation where UAB goes down there and scores, and then you have a turnover right away, just a bad throw, bad play, bad interception on Taylor Green's part. Before you can blink, you're down 10-0. And I think it just completely took them off their script and out of their rhythm. It was a mess there for a little while. And Arkansas's had some trouble with their receivers. It's, Taylor Green, the accuracy, we talked about it. It's not there. It's an issue. You've got Andrew Armstrong, he's a bona fide number one type receiver in the SEC. Really good. Beyond that, you just never know what you're going to get. I keep saying Arkansas has 1.5 wide receivers because you might have one guy step up one game. 2 weeks ago was Isaiah Satania. Last week, you didn't see so much from him, and it was Isaac Tesla who came up. Sometimes it's nobody. And I think in that game, there was a situation where Taylor Green was off timing. You had other receivers who weren't able to get open, and then you got behind and you felt like you couldn't establish and commit to the run. I think I tweeted at one point in the second quarter, like, run the ball. Eventually, they committed to it, kind of trusted the process instead of trying to make up 10, 17 points at one time. And they got things going. And they got out of there with a win. But, yeah, it was ugly and frankly, unexpected.
Yeah, I'm just looking at, total O, passing O, rushing O, turnovers. I'm like, that game, just something was obviously off there. All right, man, out the door. Let's look ahead to this weekend, not 3 weekends ago. Tennessee's favored by, at the time of this recording, 13.5. It's been there pretty much all week. That totals 60.5. What do you like in this game? How do you see it going down? And I'm not asking for a final score prediction, but if you have one, throw it out there.
Yeah, I hope, and I think that Arkansas is going to come out there and play inspired and show up ready to roll. But this does seem like a situation where, Arkansas probably hangs around. This is a competitive game, a fun game, into maybe midway through the third quarter, and Tennessee starts to kind of take control of this thing and pull away. I probably like the Vols to cover here. I'm wondering about, from a score standpoint, let's go 38-24 Tennessee at the end of this one.
Gotcha, man. Well, Curtis, thanks so much, dude. Great analysis, great insight. If Tennessee fans want to learn more about Arkansas leading up to kickoff, a long way away from kickoff, of course, it's another night game for Tennessee. What do you guys have going on over there at Inside Arkansas that they can check out?
Yeah, a lot of stuff. Like you mentioned at the top, hop over. If you like to read, we got you covered there. You can hop over to InsideArkansas.com and see what Arkansas is saying about Tennessee and everything leading up to the game. If you like to listen, just hop over to our YouTube channel, Inside Arkansas. We've got a daily live show every day, Monday through Friday. It's noon to 1:30 Central Time here, and we talk a lot of football. And it's a good time. We got a lot of stuff coming out too. Some bold predictions. We issue challenges, the key Razorbacks before a game. A lot of unique and fun stuff that you can check out if you want to get to know the opponent before Saturday.
Awesome stuff, man. Curtis, great insight. Really appreciate you. And we'll talk again in basketball season. All right.
You got it. Sounds good. Appreciate you having me on.
Hey, great stuff there from Curtis Wilkerson, Inside Arkansas. If you want information, if you want the scout even more in depth than what we did there, what we can provide you here, go check out Inside Arkansas leading up to the game to get their perspectives on Tennessee's opponent. That is Inside Arkansas. and that was our guy, Curtis Wilkerson. Okay, Grant Ramey, GameQuest. Got a couple minutes left here. Let's kind of look into the stats, what Arkansas has done this year a little bit, and how Tennessee's going to relate offensively. A little bit skewed, in my opinion, right? I mean, they're averaging 495 yards. Total offense, 283 through the air, 212 on the ground. Good rushing team. 9 turnovers. Really good on third down so far, 55%. But if you look, they won 70-0 against Arkansas Pine Bluff, which I'll credit Brent Hubbs for this. What a game that would be. Arkansas Pine Bluff against Kent State, if you know what I'm talking about there, and the level of competition.
Little ESPN bottom 10 right there.
Yeah, no doubt. Lost 39-31 in double OT at Oklahoma State in a game that nobody wanted to win. 37-27 win against UAB, where Arkansas looked really bad offensively. Went on the road to begin SEC play, and give them credit, forced 5 turnovers. One on the Plains, 24-14. But again, as we've referenced, yielded 3 leads against Texas A&M in a losing effort last weekend, 21-17. Taylor Green, third in the SEC in passing, 1,236 yards, 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 54% completion, which tells you all you need to know right there. He is the second leading rusher on the team. He's one of the top 10 rushers in the SEC. Net rushing yards, of course, you take sacks into consideration, 331 yards, 4 scores on the ground. Jaquindon Jackson, 509 yards, leads the SEC in rushing right now, 6.4 yards per tote, 9 touchdowns, averaging 101 yards per game. No true go-to wide receiver. In fact, 5 different pass catchers have reeled in 1 touchdown apiece, accounting for the 5 passing touchdowns for Arkansas this year, or for Taylor Green. But a guy that stood out to me when I was watching a little bit of that Arkansas-Texas A&M game was Isaac Tesla. I thought he looked pretty good in that one. They're going to play multiple tight ends at times, but as you pointed out, Grant, tight ends being hit by the injury bug a little bit. Offensive line-wise, they run the football well, okay? They already have 18 rushing touchdowns. That's double the amount of rushing touchdowns they had a season ago. In 2023, Arkansas had 9 rushing touchdowns. That was obviously an SEC low. They've got 18 already through 5 games. They average 5.2 yards per carry, so all that is good. However, they've given up 33 TFLs already in 5 games. They've allowed 12 sacks. So issues protecting the quarterback, issues right at the interior of the offensive line. And also, I just want to throw this out because I think it's important. We don't talk special teams a lot. But the field goal kicker, Kyle Ramsey, only 6 of 10 on the season in field goal opportunities. He's 4 for 8 in the mid-range, it's a little bit more than mid-range, 40 to 49 yards. Only 4 of 8. He does have a long of 51 yards on the season, but a little bit of inconsistencies there at field goal kicker for Arkansas. Again, Grant, overall, it's an offense that I think moves the football well. They're not good in the red zone. I have to go look it up, but they are not a good red zone football team. Turn the football over, have issues throwing the football. You mentioned Sam Pittman talking about Taylor Green not having a whole lot of confidence. It feels like if you let them, they can get you, but this should be a game where Tennessee's defense goes out there and balls, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the most impressive win is at Auburn, but when you factor in 5 turnovers, you should win a football game when you get 5 turnovers. I mean, and that's who Auburn has shown to be with Cal and with Arkansas, and who was the last one they just lost to? Oklahoma. Somehow they gave that game away in the final 10 minutes.
State.
All State. All at home. So just really tough to figure out. Anyway, I mean Auburn losing to Oklahoma Saturday. That's what they do. They lose at home. You better be good in the red zone. You better be able to run the ball like against this defense. I just need to see somebody successfully run the football against Tennessee's defense to believe or to have hesitation that Tennessee's going to give up the run. And what was the Rob Lewis stat of the week on the Tuesday podcast where he said something like 8 of those rushing touchdowns were against Pine Bluff in week 1 or something crazy.
Incredible stat.
Some crazy number like that. So, I mean, they've looked impressive at times. The start they had, getting out 21-7 at Oklahoma State, they've looked awful at times, getting down 17-3 against UAB at home a week later. Like, you can't start that slow against this Tennessee team and expect not to get buried, because they're going to put up points and they love to start fast. I think Tennessee's outscored people like crazy in the first quarter. I don't know what the numbers is, but that was another thing that Pittman was talking about on Monday. So I just don't see what this team does good or good enough consistently that it's going to press Tennessee or basically based on what we've seen so far from Tennessee. Like it's hard to think about a road game in the SEC at night against somebody that's not Vanderbilt that makes you think they're just going to show up and roll and everything's going to be fine. But based on what we've seen from Tennessee so far, like they keep showing up, and we just haven't had a quarter yet where it's like, is this Tennessee team asleep? Like, what's going on here? Like, they've been that kind of impressive from the opening kickoff on in all of these games they've played, all 4 games they've played so far.
Yeah, I think Hubbard had it in one of his 10 things over the last week or so since Tennessee's last game. I mean, they just show up, right? I mean, they just show up and play, and that's a sign of maturity. I think Arkansas can run the football well, but I think Tennessee can stop the run, obviously, and also if you're playing from behind, you can't rely on that run game to kind of be your focal point, and you're going to be forced to throw, and then I think it opens up a lot of problems. So getting out the quick starts in the first quarter, as you mentioned, that's something Tennessee's done so well under Josh Heupel. I think it kind of puts Arkansas behind the 8 ball, or behind the sticks, if you will, in terms of what it does best, and that's running the football with Utah transfer Jaquindon Jackson, who's been really, really solid. Let's flip it over and let's go to defense. I think Landon Jackson up front's a really good player, had 2 sacks against A&M, led Arkansas with like 6.5 sacks a season ago, originally started his career at LSU. I think he's a pretty good player. Nobody else really on the defensive line's a standout. They went and got an FCS player. I can't pronounce his name, and I apologize. They went and got an FCS transfer in the offseason. He had like 16 sacks at FCS and like 21 and a half TFLs. So far, he's got 1 TFL at Arkansas, so that hadn't really translated yet. 10 sacks as a unit, 26 TFLs. 3 more sacks than Tennessee has as a team, but not as many TFLs as Tennessee in 4 games only, mind you, where Arkansas has played 5. 4-2-5 is the scheme. Linebackers, they rotate in 3 or 4 guys. Excuse me, Xavier Sorey from Georgia, really good player so far this year, leads the team in tackles. You kind of work yourself back to the back end. And I think that it's a back end, a secondary that's got some talent, Grants. We know Danico Slaughter. He's going to play that nickelback spot. He had a tough first week or 2, but he's played really well since. He's got an interception, a couple of PBUs, 3rd on the team in tackles. I like the safeties and TJ Metcalf. He's got 3 picks already in 5 games. And Jordan Johnson's a guy that's been there forever, it feels like. Cornerback-wise, highly touted prospect that Matt was breaking down on the podcast earlier this week, Jaheim Singletary. He's got a pick on this season. Marquise Robinson's got a team high 4 pass breakups. Tevis Metcalf, brother of TJ Metcalf, is a guy that'll rotate in as well. They very aggressive. They've got 6 picks already in the back end, but I think this could be a game where obviously if Tennessee does what it does, runs the football and off that play action, you're going to see some open field, down the field passing that Nico can connect on.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how much they kind of, I don't know, through 4 games, it feels like we still haven't seen a ton from this Tennessee offense because we haven't had to see a ton from this Tennessee offense.
And that's important because you haven't had to. It's not because, in my opinion, Tennessee can't. Because you haven't had to. So.
They've scored 1 billion points. They just haven't been stressed. They haven't been really pressed on the offensive side to, you got to put up a ton of points to win a football game. It's 51-10 or it's 65-0 at halftime or it's 22-3 in the second half at Oklahoma, stuff like that. So I'm interested to see kind of how much they continue to rely on the run game versus maybe giving a little bit more to Nico and seeing kind of what I'm not questioning what Nico can do. The stuff he's done so far, some of the passes he's thrown has been insane. But I do think you need to kind of start ramping him up a little bit in terms of you're going to have to do a lot more down the road against an Alabama or against a Georgia or against a whoever, maybe Kentucky. Maybe Kentucky's actually impressive after all, despite that 31-7 loss to South Carolina. So I'm still the president of the Dylan Sampson fan club, and if he can give you 200 yards, let him have 200 yards and go and let your defense, do its thing. But I'm interested to see how this kind of offense, what it looks like on the other side of the bye week, and kind of how it kind of continues to progress. Just because we haven't had to see a ton from it in terms of, I don't know, just being in stressful situations, and I don't know if they'll be in a stressful situation at Arkansas, but just kind of how different it continues to look and. I don't know how different it looks, I guess, going forward.
You look at Arkansas offensively, it's turned the football over each of the past 4 games, multiple turnovers in 3 of the 5 games, 3 turnovers at Oklahoma State, 1 turnover against UAB, but that game, they were just awful. They couldn't get anything going, it felt like, at least Taylor Green couldn't. 2 turnovers at Auburn, so gosh, that game had a combined 7 turnovers, wow. And then 3 turnovers last week against Texas A&M. Tennessee goes in there and doesn't sleepwalk. Tennessee goes in, which there's no reason. This team's given us no reason to indicate that will happen. Tennessee goes in there and plays its game. Then I think the Volunteers should be in position to win this game and cover that spread, and then come back home. And you mentioned, is Tennessee ever going to have another, home game? Yeah, Tennessee's going to be home for like the next month, but I still don't know if it'll be any day games. It certainly doesn't look like that right now. Let's get some predictions out the door, man. Give me I'll go first. Bold prediction. I've kind of been on this all week, and everybody's wanting to see Mike Matthews, and I get it. I want to see Mike Matthews. I want to see Dante Thornton play more. I mean, there's only one football, guys. There's one football. And everybody was wanting to play more receivers in the offseason, and here you are. Having said that, give me the guy that nobody talks about. He's going home. It is a homecoming game for Chaz Nimrod. Give me Chaz Nimrod a touchdown. And that's not a super bold take, but a guy that doesn't score a lot of touchdowns. I think he scored one touchdown, I believe, in his career, and that was at Kentucky last year. Give me Chaz Nimrod to find the end zone at home, and let that be a really, really cool moment for him.
Chaz Nimrod, he was running wide open down that sideline, wasn't he, on that touchdown? Somebody fall down or busted coverage or something.
Yeah, yeah.
I can remember that, but I can't remember what I'm supposed to do tomorrow. How does that work?
Yeah, it's called getting old.
That's not nice. I'm gonna go Nico 330 total yards and 4 total touchdowns, and that might not sound super bold because we know what Nico's capable of, but I think he steps into the spotlight maybe a little bit more. And I don't know, the Oklahoma game was Dylan Sampson, and his tough running and Tennessee's ground game. I think we're going to see Nico kind of start to step into the spotlight a little bit more now that he's got some starts under his belt. And I was impressed at Oklahoma after the game when he said, I just didn't want to force anything. Y'all saw what happened when I forced it, talking about that North Carolina interception. I think he's showing some growth and making some progress. I think he's going to be just more impressive as the year goes on. So give me 330, I think I said, and 4 total touchdowns for Nico.
I like it. I like Tennessee to win this football game, improve to 5-0, come home, get ready for a rivalry game against Florida. You win that game. Whoo! You win that game, you're 6-0 going into Bama week, and that's just going to be monumental. But take care of the task at hand. The task at hand right now is Arkansas. I believe Tennessee will win this football game, but Grant Ramey, you're going to go first.
I'm going to go Tennessee 41, Arkansas 13. I'm not trying to be dismissive of Arkansas. I think they're pretty middle of the road in the SEC from what we've seen so far. I just have to see Tennessee struggle or not show up or, sleepwalk a little bit to think it's going to happen, because we just haven't seen it. They've put 65 up in the first half against Kent State because that's what you're supposed to do against that Kent State team. They scored 69 against Chattanooga because that's what you're supposed to do against an FCS team. The defense is, accounted for touchdowns and safeties, and they've just shown up and smothered people. So until I see it happen, until I see a reason to doubt this squad, it's hard to doubt them right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of around that ballpark. Give me, and every week I give the opponents more points, and every week Tennessee's defense just continues to come through, and
right.
I should learn my lesson by now. I just take one SEC game, 2 SEC on the road. I try not to take those things for granted, because again, look around college football, it's tough sometimes. I mean, what in the world was Ole Miss doing last week, right? We're not going to talk about Ole Miss, but it kind of goes back to what's Arkansas, what the hell's Kentucky? It's like, what's going on? Vanderbilt and Missouri a couple of weeks ago, double overtime. It's tough sometimes. But anyway, I think Tennessee controls this football game. I think Tennessee's just better. Fact of the matter is just better. I like Tennessee 45, Arkansas 17, which means just getting the over at 60.5. So we love overs here. Just getting the over at 60.5. Grant clearly hates overs. He hates fun. He's got the under.
I'm scarred from 22-3 in the fourth quarter at Oklahoma. I'm scarred.
Yeah, that's true. Give me Tennessee 45. Give me Arkansas 17. Tennessee wins and improves to 5-0 on the young season. All right, Grant Ramey, it's going to be a fun one, man. Another quick trip over to Fayetteville, and we'll see what happens. And you're going to have tons of stuff leading up to kickoff, and we'll have tons of stuff during the game and after the game, right?
This is gonna complete my SEC, my old SEC stadium tour. Now I got to add Texas to the list, but I've never been to Arkansas for football. I've been there twice, maybe 3 times for basketball. Bud Walton Arena is awesome. It's really fun. That place is crazy loud, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm interested to see how this team kind of pressure builds up every time you win a football game. The next one's a little bit bigger. We'll see if they're going to keep showing up and keep playing really high-level football.
Yeah, it definitely gets bigger each and every week. The pressure amplifies, and I don't care what anybody thinks of Florida. Florida has Tennessee's number, and that shouldn't happen this year, but it's always a big game. Tennessee and Florida, it's going to be Neyland Stadium, should be rocking. That's going to be huge, and then we all know what's going to happen in the game after that. So take care of this one, and we'll recap it all, and we'll talk about it over at Volquest.com. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate Curtis Wilkerson of Inside Arkansas for joining the show. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, checking us out. Appreciate, as always, GameQuest, our Premier Garage of Knoxville, for sponsoring this show. Presented by our great friends again, Premier Garage of Knoxville, East Tennessee's #1 provider of custom garage flooring, cabinetry, and storage solutions. Be the best Tennessee fan this football season by ordering the Smokey Grey Hybrid Polymer Floor today at premiergarageknoxville.com/Vols. Visit premiergarageknoxville.com/Vols. For Grant Ramey, Curtis Wilkerson from Inside Arkansas, I am Eric Cain. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in and joining us here on GameQuest. We'll see what Tennessee has in store. 7:30 kickoff against the Hogs.